So now that we've got our two handlers for adding and deleting the followings, let's create a new controller inside the API controllers folder, and we'll just call this followers controller and press return. And as always, this is going to inherit from our base controller, and we'll have a root for this particular controller as well, because we want this to be a child, if you like, of our profiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a root inside here, and this is going to be API/profiles, and we'll need to bring in ASP.NET Core MVC, and then I'll add the HTTP post methods, and inside here what we're going to take is the username as a parameter for the user we want to follow, and then just /follow. So to access this particular method, we'll be using API/profiles/Bob, for example, /follow. And if it's an HTTP post, then we're going to be trying to follow this particular user. So we'll make it a public async task that's going to return nothing, but we'll stick with using the action results for consistency and passing back the unit, which is effectively nothing as normal, and we'll just call a method named follow, and we'll pass in the string of the username. And we'll also need to bring in system threading tasks and mediator. And inside this method, all we want to do is return await mediator.send, and we're going to create a new add, and we'll need to bring in application followers and command, and we'll initialize the username and set it equal to the username that we're passing in as the root parameter. And we'll just create another method as well for HTTP delete, and this one's going to take the username / and we'll just stick with calling it follow, but it's going to be a HTTP delete, so we're deleting the following in this case, and it will be a public async task of action results. Again, we'll pass back unit, which means nothing, and we'll just call a method unfollow in this case. And again, we'll pass in the username as a string, and we'll return await mediator.send, and we'll say new delete command, and again we'll initialize the username equal to the username for this as well. So now we've got our controller set up, we should be able to test this, but in all of my testing I've never once been able to create a new controller and hit the root straight away. So just to preempt that, I'm actually just going to restart my API server and just do a .NET watch run. And once that's restarted, we can now go and test this functionality. So let's go back to Postman, and inside the module 20 folder in Postman we've got a bunch of different requests. So let's log in as both Bob and Tom and save the token to the environment in Postman. So we've got a login for Bob, so let's click send and log in as Bob, and we get the user object back from our API. And let's do the same for Tom, and we'll log in as Tom this time, but the difference is we're saving the token as Tom_token. So I'll click send in this case as well, and then we get the user object back for Tom. And there's a couple of requests here to get Bob's profile, but we haven't set up the ability to return the users that a user is following at this time. So all we can do really at the moment is just test the follow and unfollow functions are working. So I'm just going to send a post request to API/profiles Tom and follow, and I'm using the token for Bob in this case. So when I follow this user, I'm following the observer in this case is going to be Bob, and the target is going to be Tom. So if I click on send, we get the 200 OK, but we don't really get any feedback that this has really successfully worked. But if I do try and send again, then what we get is the error saying that we're already following this user. So it certainly appears to have worked, and we'll hook this up to the user's profile soon. But let's just make sure the unfollow works as well. And in this case, I'm sending up an HTTP delete, again as Bob. We're using that particular token. And if I click on send, then we get the 200 OK. And if I click on send again, then we get the error saying we're not following this user. So that functionality certainly appears to be working. But what we'll look at next is hooking this up to our user's profile so that we can also send back the details about things like how many users the user is following or being followed by, and if the user is following a particular user as well. And we'll start to take a look at that next.